Hey guys, it's Miss Black with another art tutorial. This tutorial is very similar to a couple of other tutorials that I've done about snowflakes, but this one is geared towards very young students or students who might benefit from a very detailed instruction. So I am going to do that for this video. So we're talking about snowflakes, we're talking about the changing of the seasons. Right now we're in fall technically, but in just a couple weeks we're going to go into winter, and so we're kind of talking about how water, not how nature changes, but how water changes with the colder temperatures, and that is what happens to the types of moisture that comes from the clouds, and it changes from rain or sleet into this beautiful snowflake. So we're going to be learning about snowflakes with this project. You guys are going to be creating your own snowflake, and it's going to be really cool because all of you guys are different artists, and there are also no two snowflakes that are completely the same. So I'm drawing this awesome idea from this book here called Hello Nature. It's an awesome book by Nina Chakrabarty. How do you even say that? Chakrabarty? And she's illustrated a bunch of different books, but this one's really just all about nature. It's so cool. And if we flip to near the end, she talks about all of the seasons and all of the really cool things that you find in those different seasons. And this one is Hello Winter. So we're going to take a look at snowflakes. Okay, this is a guide to snowflakes. You might think, hey, this is the classic snowflake, this is the only type there is, but actually scientists have discovered that there's about 35 different types of snowflakes, and they could all be in one of these forms. So we've got this simple prism here, which is just like a 3D shape, and it's clear and see-through, and most people think of snowflakes as being white, but actually they're technically see-through. They just appear to be white because when they're stacked on top of each other, they start to take on that color. But there's all sorts. This one is going to be more like the one that you guys will be creating today. This one's called a branched star, and there's billions and billions of different ones of that type, which is amazing. The one that we're all familiar with is called dendrites, but they're not all like that. We've got this really interesting type of snowflake there, or snow crystal. We've got just like a solid column that comes down during different types of cold and weather, different types of weather. We've got this really flat hexagonal plate, and it's just in the shape of a hexagon, which is a shape with 6 sides. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. And actually, all snowflakes, or all snow crystals, have some form of 6-sided shape. So it's really interesting how that happens, and you'll learn about that in a video that I would like to have you guys jump to before we start this project. It's called Where Do Snowflakes Come From? And it's by SciShow Kids on YouTube. So I would suggest pausing it here, watching that video with all this really cool information, and then jumping back into this project. We are at 3:45. I would jump into that, back to this video at 3:45. So I will leave that up for you guys to look at and watch the video. But once you get back, we are going to be creating our own, and I just wanted you guys to get just a glimpse of all of the different types of snowflakes that we could actually see with a microscope. So those are really cool. Another thing I wanted you guys to check out is some of these facts, and a lot of these facts are actually on the video that you just saw, but I'm going to repeat some of those. Did you know that no two snowflakes are exactly the same? So some might look very, very similar, but they take different paths to get to Earth, which means that they are different in some small way. Just like we have our own paths as we go through life, which means that none of us are the same, right? An average snowflake is made up of 180 billion molecules of water. So that's the teeny, teeny, tiny thing that builds like a glass of water, or a cube of ice, but for just a teeny tiny snowflake that you need a microscope to see, it's made up of 180 billion molecules. So I thought that was really interesting. And then snowflakes are formed of ice crystals. So actually they're technically called ice crystals. And snow is a mineral like salt or diamonds. So those are really cool facts about snowflakes. And also I wanted to show you guys this page because this artist called Nina has designed every single page and has drawn all of these little things. So I wanted you guys to take a look at these, and maybe it will give you some ideas for your snowflake that you're going to design today. Okay, so you guys could go back and pause it on there if you want some ideas. We're going to go ahead and jump to our project. So what we're going to need for this project is a colored piece of paper, and we need to make sure actually that this paper is cut into a square. So what I'm going to do is just do this, because when I fold it like this, it makes it into a square. But the teachers should know that you need a square piece of colored paper. And I would suggest one of the colder paper colors. So I wouldn't suggest using red, yellow, or orange. Those are warm colors, which don't really lend to thinking about something that's cold. I would suggest using blue, purple, or green for this project. But colored paper or even black works, because we saw how cool that was in the book we just saw. And I'm just going to go ahead and rip this. But you should already have a square paper. Got a square paper here, except for this little dent that I've made, which is fine. So actually this fold is going to help us with our project. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go from this corner to this corner, and we're going to fold it up and match it up. So go ahead and do that. And then what we're going to do is open it back up and turn it, and what you might notice is we've created a line here. And this line will be a really good guideline for our project in making our own snowflake. Okay, let's flip it over to the other corner, and I'm going to match this corner up with this corner. And these guidelines are going to help us make our snowflake very even. So I've done that, and actually I've used my fingernail to give it a nice tight fold, because when it's a nice tight fold, I can really see those lines really well. Okay, so I've got that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this edge up to this edge right here. And if you need to pause it at any point to catch up, if I'm going too fast, just go ahead and pause it. Make sure that it's matched up though. It's not going to look as pretty if you don't have these guidelines matched up. So this would not be matched up. This wouldn't be matched up. We want these edges to be matched up as perfect as we can. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it's got to be your best work. Okay, I'm gonna open it up, and then one more time I'm going to fold this edge up to this edge so that we have an X, like a letter X, and a letter T, and I'll show you guys what that looks like in just a second. Okay, so when we open it up, we've got the letter X right here, and we've got the letter T. Okay, and all of these lines are going to help us with our project. So we've got our colored paper in a square. We've folded the guidelines, and let's count how many lines we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I know that snowflakes are six-sided shapes and patterns, but we have a square paper, not a hexagonal paper. So we're not going to be using 6 sides because we don't have a hexagon, we have a square. And because it's a square, 8 will be a really even number for our snowflake. So what we're going to do now is actually you're going to need a crayon, and I would suggest a white crayon for this, or any type of crayon that is light colored. So right here I've got a pink crayon that would work really well, just because I can't find my white crayon. But if you've got a white crayon, I would suggest using that, because that's what snow appears to be. Okay. So we've got our paper, we've folded it into 8 sections, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've got a crayon that we can use to draw this snowflake. So what we're going to do first is we're going to write our name And it's really cool how those light crayons show up on this darker paper. Flip it over to the blank side, and that's where we're going to start our snowflake. So each line that we've made by folding our paper is going to be a guideline, and it's going to help us with each of our arms or branches that come off of our snowflake. And that's what those are called. So if we look at this right here, these little things coming out from the center or from the middle of your snowflake are called arms or branches. And so that's what we're going to be designing today. But we're not going to do 6, we're going to do 8 because our paper is square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start with one of these lines, and I'm going to think of shapes. I'm not going to use shapes that are round like circles or half circles or ovals, because you don't really see those types of shapes in regular snowflakes like this right here. Okay, you might see a circle looking shape in the middle, but technically that's a hexagon, not a circle. So you're going to be thinking about shapes that are not round. So you're not going to do circles, you're not going to do ovals, you're not going to do anything with a round or smiley or frowny line. You're going to do shapes that have straight sides and they have corners, like an octagon right here, like a stop sign when you see a stop sign. Triangles, so they've got straight lines, they've got corners. Squares, hexagons, which are 6-sided shapes. Anything with those types of lines. So straight lines and angles or corners. So I'm going to just design one line right here. And you could actually just go one shape at a time. I'm going to start with a square. So I'm going to draw a square on this line right here. Okay. And because I have one there, I'm going to draw one on all of my lines. Because what this snowflake has is called symmetry. Let's kind of figure out what symmetry is. So symmetry is when you have a shape that you can fold in half. So imagine if my hands were stuck together, but I folded them in half. And because I folded them in half, and because they have symmetry, it's made the same shape, right? You can try this with your own hands. Well, that's just one type of symmetry. The type of symmetry that snowflakes have is called radial symmetry, which means it can be folded and turned into the same shape more than once. So in this one, it can be folded 4 different times. So it's got radial symmetry. So that means that we need to make each line look as much the same as we can, and that's what's going to make it look like a snowflake. So because I have a square here, I'm going to put another square on this one, and it doesn't have to look perfect because we are not Mother Nature and we don't actually make snowflakes, right? We're just designing our own. But if it has some mistakes like mine does, that's fine, because this is the beauty of it. It's the beauty of making your own snowflake. By the way, you guys should be choosing your own shapes. You don't have to do squares. If you'd like to do a square, you can do a square, but you don't have to be doing the same thing that I'm doing. Okay, so I've done a square. So now what I want to do is choose another type of shape that has lines and angles or corners. So maybe I want to put a triangle on the top of my square. So I'm going to do that on all of my squares, and I'm going to try and make it around the same size triangle. And do that on all of my squares. And some are bigger than others, and that's okay. Making mistakes is okay. But the beauty of this is it's already starting to look like a snowflake, so it's really cool. If you want to do something with the middle, you can. Maybe I just want to put a square in the middle. You know, that's up to you. And what I want to do is actually make all of my arms or branches reach as close to the edge of my paper as I can. So I got to think about lots of different shapes that I can draw to reach the top of my paper. So maybe I want to do a rectangle. So draw a longer rectangle. So if I draw a longer rectangle here, I want to try and make it as much the same as I possibly can in all of my arms So I'm going to do it in all of my lines. And this is so much fun. Okay, and so now I'm going to think about another shape that I might want to use. Maybe I want to use another square, but maybe this square is quite large. So I'm going to do that in all of my lines or arms. Oops. They don't have to look exactly the same. Okay, so I'm done with that. It's already starting to look like a really cool snowflake. If I want to add other types of shapes onto these different shapes that I've already added, I can do that too. So maybe I want to put 2 small triangles on either side of my squares. So I'm going to just make sure that I do that on all of my outside squares. Okay, maybe I want to put another square right here or another square right here. I just want to make sure that if I do that, that I put it on all of them so it has that radial symmetry we've been talking about. Okay, so I'm actually just going to stop it right there, and I hope that you guys have had so much fun with this. One last thing I would suggest doing though before I sign off is to take your white crayon or whatever color crayon you have and just color in those shapes as if they are stuck together like a snowflake. And maybe I want to put a triangle here. That would look cool. But I'm going to color in all of these shapes, and it's almost like we're gluing them together. And when it's all colored in, it's going to look just like a snowflake that you have created. And it's so cool. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there, and I hope you guys have so much fun with this project. I would suggest if you get done early or if you have extra time, just go ahead and make another one. Thanks, you guys. I'm excited to see what you've done. We'll see you next time.